New Zealand Defence Minister Judith Collins, thank you so much for your time. I know that the program in the Munich Security Conference is full.
Very full, yes.
So we'd like to know your opinion about the US President's growing interest in defence spending.
Well, I think that he is right, that we need to spend more on defence, both in New Zealand and in other countries, because I think what is very clear is that we cannot just hope that everyone's going to stick to their borders and that we can expect the United States to come and help without putting an effort in themselves. So he was very clear. He has a mandate to do that, and just how much that is an issue for every country.
I think you have heard or seen the speech of G.D. Vance yesterday. Any comment about it?
Well, I was there.
Okay.
I thought it was very much about shared democratic values like freedom of speech and the ability to criticise. I wouldn't go into all the details of what he said, but I understand that he was trying to make a point about the democracies and why we need to save them, but also that they need to be robust. But I know that many Europeans wanted to be hearing from him on Ukraine, but look, I'm neither in Europe nor in the United States, so I'm just happy to listen and to think about how that affects New Zealand.
But considering New Zealand has almost the lowest defence spending of any of the core Five Eyes security group, what will you do to deal with Trump's maybe threats, discussions about defence spending?
Well, we're very clear that we need to increase our defence spending quite significantly, and we have, like many other countries, been spending the last 35 years thinking about how to save money on defence when we need to be spending money. So we are going to be increasing. We're just at the moment working through a plan as to how much and in exactly what ways, because it's not just the money spent, it's how we spend it. We also inherited, when we came into government just over a year ago, a defence force that had lost a lot of very experienced personnel, and it was to do with the way that the previous government had used defence to run COVID lockdowns and managed isolation facilities. So we lost a lot of people through that. However, we are now rebuilding, and so there's no doubt that we are going to have to spend more money on defence.
Do you keep always in mind the Indo-Pacific tensions as well?
Yeah, absolutely right. The Indo-Pacific is not the peaceful place that it should be in terms of some quite aggressive and difficult behaviours that we see from time to time. I think the Chinese intercontinental ballistic missile that was launched a few months ago right across the Pacific into the Pacific nuclear free zone was a real wake-up call for us and for other countries as to just how tense things are becoming. We're also involved in the UN, the Law of the Sea, to make sure that we are involved in crossings through and passings through the Taiwan Strait, South China Sea work. We're involved in sanctions work on North Korea, and we're very aware that things are changing.
How rising tensions in Ukraine, in the Middle East, in the Indo-Pacific would impact New Zealand's security, defence, or diplomacy as well?
Everything does. The world is connected. And so if I look at the Indo-Pacific region, basically the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, countries like Russia and China and North Korea are all Pacific nations. So is the United States, so is Canada, so is us, so is most of Asia. So it's a very large, and so what Russia does, of course, particularly the work that they've been doing with having North Koreans fight with them in Ukraine, that gives us quite a lot of cause for concern. So we have, everything's related, and I think sometimes we tend to think of land mass. We think in the Pacific of water. So not only water, but what's in that water, which is enormous amounts of fish, but also what's on the seabed. And we, in the Pacific, we have a ring of fire underneath us, which means there's a lot of minerals and resources. And so we're very aware that other countries may look at our resources and say that they would like to take those.
If you can give us your evaluation of the NATO in the 5 past years, for example, what would you say?
Well, I think that NATO has been stepping up. I think they've become, they've always been a defence alliance, not an aggressive alliance. I've only been involved in NATO in the last year as the New Zealand Defence Minister, but certainly I've found under the leadership of Mark Rutte that NATO is working very hard to do better for itself and for democracies.
Do you think that the war in Ukraine and Russia threats make NATO think in quick steps? I mean, according to defense spending, according to strengthening partnerships?
Well, I think that NATO is looking to see how it can be a more important player in the Indo-Pacific as well. So New Zealand is one of the 4 IP4, which is the Indo-Pacific 4, which is attached to NATO for various things. And I think they're very aware that the Pacific, particularly with nations that are both involved in Europe and the Pacific, this still is a very important area and another area where there could be conflict.
Did you discuss, or are you going to discuss any partnerships here in Munich with European countries and the United States?
Well, no, not really, because we're already part of the IP4 with NATO. I attended the NATO Defence Ministers meeting last year, and we will be attending, I understand, the Foreign Ministers meeting as well. So we do attend meetings with NATO, but there's no thought of joining NATO, and we couldn't because we're not part of the Northern Atlantic. So we are very much in the South Pacific, but we like to be friends with NATO. They're allies. We've worked together in Afghanistan together. So they're good friends.
If you can describe the defense relationship between New Zealand and the United States.
We have a very close relationship, which goes back a very long way. We've been with the United States in almost every opportunity. We were in Vietnam with the United States when many other countries in Europe were not. We're with the United States in the Republic of Korea, involved in the United Nations force there that helps to keep the peace on the Korean Peninsula. We were in Afghanistan. We were in. We've been in Iraq. We've been in pretty much all around the world. So we are very close.
Of NATO, or
no, that was primarily with the United States and with not with NATO. The United States was in Afghanistan, so we were closely connected. We're also part of the Five Eyes intelligence sharing agreement, and so that goes back to the end of the Second World War. So we've been with the United States for a very long time, and obviously the First and Second World Wars, the Korean War. We just like to do what we can.
In a world that changes every second in politics, in economy, in defense, how can you describe the relationship with China?
Well, it's also very close. Primarily, we have a very strong economic relationship with China, but we've had a lot of cooperation over the years in scientific research and all sorts of areas. But clearly, the United States is, by the way, our second largest trading partner. China is our largest trading partner. But the relationship with the US goes back a very long way, back to the First World War. And it's been one of mutual trust and recognition. And of course, there's those shared democratic values. And when we're looking at security arrangements, our security arrangements are very closely aligned with our long-time partners. Our one formal ally we have militarily wise is Australia, and so we work very closely with them as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.